Plymouth Committee of the Whole. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Tauschek.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
Matsdorf. Here. Gilson.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Pankwitz.
Here.
Binder.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Let the record show we have a quorum. Next is, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 27th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to item 3, discussion and recommendation to Plan Commission regarding 13-1-140 accessory structure size, and I'll have Tim introduce it and we'll go from there. Tim.
Sure, so I'm gonna do a brief introduction and then we'll have our building inspector, Pete Shireman, do some just examples for council as we move forward. So section 13-1-140 of the zoning code defines permitted accessory structures for residential properties. We've received feedback from the building inspector and a number of residents that this section of code has not been amended. As vehicle size has increased, more residents have recreational items such as boats, snowmobiles, snow blowers, etc. And then residents want to continue to make improvements to their homes, such as additions, pavilions, greenhouses, and sheds. The goal of the accessory structures code is to really balance residents' need and want with overcrowding of structures on a property. So our building inspector did review peer communities and has made some recommendations to modify section 13-1-140. So the full outline is in attachment 1, but I did highlight some of the proposed changes with the current code in your memo below. Really tonight, what I'd like to focus on is if there's a general interest from the committee of the whole for this type of change to increase the availability of accessory use for most properties. That would then be referred to the Plan Commission, which can really dive into the weeds. But in general, the idea would be to increase the size of accessory use structures, usually up to the footprint size of the home, and add the ability to add one additional accessory structure. So if you already have a house, you'd be able to have, or already have a garage, you can add another accessory structure or two, depending on if it's an attached or detached garage. So that's sort of the general concept. But I think it's probably this kind of item in detail is better to see more visually. So Pete is going to do some examples of what this means with current code and just sort of draw it out. I think it's easier to visualize.
I don't know if the audience can see this. This is PowerPoint 1982. Yeah, Tim had pretty well explained the situation for the last over 25 years. The ordinance was the same. I think it was, I don't know how long it's been there, but as he explained, people just have more things. And in reviewing some peer communities on an overall basis, the city of Plymouth was the most restrictive overall. For example, let's say you have, I'll draw and step out of the way, your little pink house at 1,700 square feet or 1,500 square feet, you're allowed to have up to 1,200 square feet of attached garage. And then you're done. Or a combination thereof to, and this kind of gets real dicey and technical. You can have it all here in this manner. Say you can have 600 square feet of garage here. Your maximum accessory use currently in the city of Plymouth is 1,200 square feet. So now you want to have a shed, you can have, a smaller shed, but you're over the 1,200. I'm trying not to confuse, but the footprint of the house has to be at least 1,200 square feet in order to exercise the ability to have 1,200 square feet of combined total aggregate accessory use. So then let's say you have 300 here and That's typically what we've been seeing, but we have had some interest. Recently, I'll share some numbers with you. We had, and this is kind of an extreme, but I've been saying no, no, no for all these years. We had a house whose footprint was 2,955 square feet. Total finished, I think they're gonna be north of 4,500 square feet. They came in, and they're gonna be dropping over about $900,000 on the house. They came in, and the garage was designed for 1,340 some odd square feet. And I'd say, no, it's 1,200 square feet. So they obliged, changed their plan. So now they have a $900,000 house with a 1,200 square foot garage. If they want a garden, the answer is no, because you've already reached your maximum of the 1,200 square feet allowed. And the other proposal, right, let me retract that. So let's say now we're dealing with a 1,500, 1,700 square foot home. You could build this, let's just pick a number at 1,600 square feet. And this is regulated in size by your side, your front, and your overall lot coverage. There's a lot of checks and balances. This really gets dicey, but what the ordinance is proposing on an attached garage, let's say you have 1,600 here and you want to have a shed, you can have 200 of a shed. If you like to garden, you can also have a 200 square foot greenhouse. Currently, we only allow one detached structure if you have an attached garage. And if you have some questions, please ask. So if the other scenario, and this is not near as common, but if you have a sizable home, build your garage here, you get one detached structure. This would be under the same rules that this garage could be as large as the footprint of the house. Again, checks and balances, lot coverage and setbacks. There was one or two communities, and then I attended an institute from the League of Municipalities. Ran into a couple guys up north. We got talking about this, and in other communities, if it fits, you can build it. And I'm not sure why we were at the 1,200 square feet, but if you can fit within your setbacks, you can build it. And your setbacks residentially, and you're typically 9, 30 in the front, and then 25 in the rear. And then you would look at an overall lot coverage of 50%, but then when you're developing in your backyard with your detached structures, I'm reducing or requesting to reduce the rear yard coverage from 35% to 30%. So that's part of the checks and balances there. Then we actually had one last summer. Somebody had that similar situation. It was out in Greystone. They had, a nice Greystone home, attached garage, had a lawn barn. They wanted to build a pavilion. The answer is no, you're restricted to one detached structure. So this would enable that person and other people, because there are people that are calling. I had a lady call the other day. They wanted to put up a greenhouse. So I had to tell her no. So she did one of two things: not put up the greenhouse or put it up on the weekend without a permit. To be honest. And I hope I didn't confuse. It's real technical when you're taking a look at these things. There's a lot of checks and balances. We've looked at it a little bit on staff level to where we're not going to have a runaway train. If there's going to be this, there may not be many people that can take advantage of this. Whether it's a cost or just a need. But if they want to, it'd be available to them, so they can then more easily have a forever home. Because we've had people that have called my office. I had to tell them no. They sold their house and they went to sell. zone.
Question B. When you say structure, you're talking about permanent. You're not talking temporary.
Yes, permanent structures. And with that, in your handout, you'll see the city of Sheboygan had the greenhouse specifically mentioned, and I worked up a definition of that, but that would be something that may look like a temporary structure because it should be transparent to let the sun through. But actually, yeah, like a pavilion, a shed, detached garage, these are all considered to be a permanent structure. Although we do regulate like plastic, your Rubbermaid lawn barns, we do regulate those.
Gentlemen?
Kind of taking it further, so a shed that's built on a concrete slab is a permanent structure. What if it's on a floating building resting on gravel?
That would be considered permanent.
No,
I had a discussion with, and the folks down south of Plymouth here are doing a wonderful job with they call them, I don't know, they refer to them as movable buildings or temporary buildings or something like that. And somebody called and they wanted to put one up, and I said, well, how big is it? And they said 10 by 20. And I said, well, that's a garage. He goes, no, they just wheel it right on my property. I said, but here in the city, that's a garage. That's too big to just drop on the ground. But anything that gets installed like that, that would be considered permanent. Because it's not, yeah, they don't have wheels. I mean, you can move them, but it's a task. You get an 8 by 10 lawn barn, they're pretty heavy.
If you can't pick up and move it yourself, it's permanent.
There you go. Yeah, that'd be a good way. And then the other two things, I just wanted to bring these up. I like to bring this in because one of these might get triggered with a larger type construction, would be number 6, but number 5, the detached structures in residential zones shall be complementary to the dwelling construction and appearance. I want to try to avoid encouraging pole barns. That hasn't been regulated up to this point. And then number 6, pole agricultural type constructed buildings and metal pole barn siding are not allowed. That would be part of this approval that I'm seeking.
So at this point, Tim, Pete is looking for a consensus from the council to move it to Plan Commission.
Yeah, and I think Alder Binder had a question, but yes, moving forward, what it would be a referral to Plan Commission to move forward with this changes to zoning code.
Okay, Alder Binder, you had a question?
You talk about two-family homes, and then is a duplex different, or is that included?
Are historically referred to as double flats or duplexes, and I'm asking that the word duplex be taken out. That's a dated term. It's a two-family because they're regulated under the 1 and 2 family dwelling code here in the state of Wisconsin. But our older neighborhoods that have the double flats or the duplexes probably aren't going to be able to take advantage of the larger garages, but they may be able to take advantage of the extra accessory structure as long as they don't exceed the 30% of their half of the yard.
I live in one of those, that's why.
Oh, okay.
Just for clarification, Kevin, I think I heard you said that once this goes to planning commission, they'll be able to tweak the recommendation, is that right? If we send it to the planning commission, it's not just this plan, they can actually modify it?
Correct, yeah. So this is, the idea tonight is we put together what we think is our best recommendation. We'll then present that to Plan Commission, but Plan Commission could tweak that and then send it back to council. Eventually, council has the final approval.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for me, it was real hard to kind of formulate in my head to try to convey all this to you, so I really hope I don't confuse, but I'm in the book. If you have any questions after the meeting, to call, stop by or whatever, And as Jim had explained, it's going to be going to the Plan Commission, and then we'll probably try to expose the details a little bit more.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Just a little bit of humor, Pete, someday AI might be able to take care of all that stuff, that's,
I'll be gone by then.
There goes 1982.
Yeah, 1982. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you for your time.
Everybody's okay with moving the plan commission on that?
Yeah, so we'd look for a motion to refer to.
We should
Plan
have a
Commission.
motion on that.
Okay, I'll make the motion to refer modification section 13-1-140 regarding accessory structures to planning commission for review.
Perfect.
I'll second the motion.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Nelson,
Yes.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Matsdorf,
Yes.
Penkwitz,
Yes.
Tauschak,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Binder,
Yes.
Gilson.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. That's the first time I ever saw Pete do artwork. Not bad, Pete. Moving on to item 4, project status update from Cheese Capital Winter Park LLC. I'll have Tim start the process and discussion, and then we'll move into the organization. Tim?
Perfect. So Nut Ski Hill has not been utilized for organized winter recreation since February 2014. Over the past 2 years, a small group known as Cheese Capital Winter Park LLC have formed a nonprofit to investigate the reestablishment of Nut Ski Hill for winter activity. Last summer, July 2023, the group presented the concept to the committee of the whole. At that time, the committee wanted to receive feedback before, putting continued logistics and fundraising effort into the project. At that time, the consensus of the committee of the whole was for the group to finalize the ski hill design and return with a concept and request. So tonight, Joe Van Derven is here from the group, is going to provide a status update from the ski hill organization, and then happy to answer questions from the committee moving forward. Really, this is sort of in advance of the discussion later on for council regarding a potential advisory referendum, but regardless, there will still be feedback on this at Parks Committee, likely public open house event, Plan Commission, and Common Council. So without further ado, I'll have Joe give a presentation.
Hey everyone, thanks for your time today. So, they have it.
Yes, it should be once you hit the button.
All right,
Yep.
sounds good. So. Again, appreciate your time tonight. So, tonight what we'll go through is community members that have been part of the group putting this together, what our vision is. We'll look at some survey results that we received, talk about what we've been working on, look at our timeline, and then have discussion and feedback and next steps. So I think open discussion, if you've got questions, I've been going. I'm happy to, I can answer them, got some other individuals. Same people have been working on it. We added 2 since the last time that we met. Terry Schramm and Jason Demas have joined our group to help us with our vision. So our vision really is to provide affordable winter recreational activities that facilitate skill development, healthy lifestyle, and improve life experiences for present and future generations of residents throughout East Central Wisconsin. So we're looking at this East Central Wisconsin region, not just Plymouth, Wisconsin. We would like to operate Nut Hill as a nonprofit organization and making significant improvements to the infrastructure, facilities, and property to support tubing, skiing, snowboarding, and in phase 2, ice skating. We plan to raise the capital funds to support snowmaking, grooming, building improvements, land modifications, and install magic carpet. That's our vision. We wanted to put out a survey to see if there was demand in the community to reopen Nut Hill. So we worked with, in April of '22, we partnered with the Plymouth School District, St. John's the Baptist, and St. John Lutheran to conduct a survey to gauge the demand and if Plymouth residents were interested in our vision. Over 450 families participated in our survey. 84 plus of the residents indicated they were interested in having an outdoor winter sports option in Plymouth, so a score of 8 or above. 58% rated the initiative as a 10, which is the highest possible rating. So we saw that there was demand in the community, and with that demand, we moved forward with trying to put together a vision. Of the potential winter activities, tubing and sledding was by far the most highly rated and most popular. So then that was followed by skiing. So what have we been doing since we last met on July 11th, 2023? So we've really been finalizing the hill layout. We had several iterations. The hill's fairly small, and so we wanted to make sure that the tubing was safe and address some of the other issues that were raised in some of the community meetings. So then we challenged our capital investment numbers. I think last time we came, we were like at about 3 million or so for capital investment on the hill, and we challenged some of those numbers. We continued to raise funds, and then we modified plans to incorporate that community feedback that I talked about. This is the hill layout. So as you can see, the top, we have parking lots. We would have a 60 by 60 shed on the top that would house all of our equipment for making snow, like the pumps and things we need for intake of water, accelerating that water for the guns, things like that. And then it would also house a groomer for the hill, so we'd store it in there. We have the existing structure, which is up there today. We would like to enclose that structure on the patio areas with glass so that people can be comfortable when they're watching kids tube or they're coming in for a snack from skiing. Today it's not enclosed, so we want that enclosed with windows. You see the tubing lanes on the, I guess that's the east side of the hill. Those would come down and churn on the hill, so we'd have 6 tubing lanes on the hill. And then you see the orange line, or the kind of purple line is where the magic carpet would go. That would be where the existing tour road today is. And then on the left of that, you see the ski runs. So to the west, you have the original ski run that is already there, but we'd also add 1 ski run. The tubing lanes, on the outside of the tubing lane, that would be about 5 feet high, a 5-foot high berm, so that we could kind of turn people on the berm on the tube. But it would also create a natural area on the inside to collect water. One of the things that we heard from the community is we're going to have all this water melting or the snow melting in the spring. What's that going to do? Where's it going to go? And that's to stop all that water from going down the hill. So we would have, storm drains there, and we'd tie into the existing storm system within the city. Any questions on the engineering drawings? I know this is new. We did not present this to the city at the last meeting in the whole, so we spent a lot of time making sure.
I do.
Is that correct? Go ahead.
I was brought to my attention where the blue line is where the ski hill is coming down, right?
Yes.
And what's down the center of it? Where it's opened up,
In between those 2 lanes,
in between them.
that would be all trees.
It's still gonna stay all trees?
All trees, yeah.
Okay, that was their concern.
Okay. Yep, so that would be all trees.
It just looks like it's open for something, you know what I mean? You see where I mean, where you misunderstood, but
Where the dotted line is,
no. If you look where, you got the blue circle,
yep,
you got to the west is the ski hill. What's directly east of that closed-in area coming down that hill?
the 2 ski lanes are those two runs, and then in the middle, there's kind of an oblong shape.
And then to the east of that is,
That would be this,
yeah, between the magic carpet blue line, right after the magic carpet blue line, right in that area. Looks like you're
that would be
opening.
the ski run.
Still trees.
Can I, do you mind if I walk over?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
definitely.
Okay, that might make it easier. So what we've got here is, we've got the start where the existing ski run is, right
Yep,
here.
where original ski run is.
Yeah, exactly. And then here, Greg, this would be another ski run right there.
Was that original?
No, it's not.
So you're gonna be taking out a lot more trees than what was originally brought to us?
We would be taking out trees there, yes. We
For
don't,
for the second ski run.
But that's not original, it's an add-on, correct?
that would be an add-on, yes.
See, that's the concern, is when this all started, they wanted as much trees left as possible. And now you're kind of coming into it and saying, we're gonna open up all this other.
Yeah, and I think that we would want to partner with the city to understand what trees in there are healthy and which ones aren't healthy. I think there's a lot of ash on that tree, or on that hill. So are they trees that are gonna survive, or are they gonna die from the ash borer? So when we look at the trees and the health of that forest hasn't been managed in the past. So you've got a lot of undergrowth. We would be opening that up, which could be a positive for the forest. Also, I think we need to get a count on how many trees are actually healthy within that run.
There's just a concern on that with the people.
For sure. Yeah.
But between the two runs, you would still have trees
Yeah, that's what he said,
between them?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
the island there. Anyway, that was my concern.
Okay,
And trees between the magic carpet and that one ski run also, right?
yeah, yeah.
In between the magic carpet and the tubing.
Yeah, there's a
Correct.
section
And there
trees
too.
down towards the bottom that would stay as they are today.
Okay.
Okay. So just looking at the capital numbers, our original was just over 3 million, so about 3.2. We looked at that, we brought that down to $2,210,000 is what the investment would need to be. We raised almost $1.6 million to date, so we're looking at a deficit of about $640,000 that we have to raise yet. Yeah, so a lot of positive movement there. So during the community events that we had, we got some feedback, and I wanted to address that, how we're taking that feedback and modifying our plans. So the first one is lighting. We want to use directional lighting on the hill, so we're not creating light pollution for the city, creating a nuisance for the neighbors. We want that directional lighting with not the high luminance. We want, lighting that's sufficient for the community and, doesn't impede upon people's quality of life. Noise from the equipment, I added some statistics in the appendix in this presentation, but a gas lawnmower is about 106 decibels, and all of our equipment would be less decibels than that. There's been lots of advances with snowmaking equipment, things like that, so it's not the snowmaking equipment volt, it's a little bit louder, it's quite quiet. Water diversion we talked about, so in our plan, we're creating a natural water barrier and catch so that we can deal with that water. Then the magic carpet location, we had it kind of going up the middle of the large run, and we moved that into where the tow rope was, because in the summer, it'll be much better looking. It's not very aesthetic in the middle of the run, and so we took that feedback and put that into our plan. From a timeline perspective, we originally looked at opening the winter of 24-25. We pushed that out 1 year. I think the engineering drawings took longer than we thought they would, because we had many iterations to make sure that it was, not removing a bunch of land, it wasn't starring the hill, it was doing it, environmentally correctly, things like that. So the plan we have now, there's minimal earth moving. Some of the plans that we had, we would have to be digging into the hill, like 13 feet down, just to get a slope for tubing. So that wasn't acceptable for us, and I don't think it'd be acceptable for the community. So really, this design is the smallest or lowest impact on the entire hill. So right now, we're at the meeting of the whole. We've kicked off our capital campaign, and then, you know, we would like to seek city approval at some point to move forward with our project. These are the same discussion points that we talked about at the meeting of the whole last time. So we want to lease the land for $1 with an initial term of 20 years, with the option to extend 10 years at the end of that initial lease. We'd want to lease it for 12 months a year. So we looked at models of Dewey, try to lease it for 6 months, and the city takes it for 6, and we'll go back and forth, and I think it's just cleaner to lease it. We raised the capital funds for infrastructure, snowmaking, grooming, the maintenance shed, magic carpet, and new shelter. We're enclosing the shelter. We take on the operational expenses. We have marketing, merchandising, naming, and signage rights. We retain all revenue in building rentals, special events, ticket sales for the duration of the lease. We retain all donations to the Hill and nonprofit organization. We determine hours of operations within the city's ordinance, and we partner on that. We can upgrade equipment if financially viable. We can make modifications to existing buildings, including removal of structures and equipment. And we can modify the property within the city oversight, of course.
I have a question within the marketing part of it. Like, I know it'll be called the Cheese Capital Winter Park, but are you renaming the actual hill?
No, the Cheese Capital Winter Park is just the name of the nonprofit, but we keep it as Nut Hill.
John?
Talking about your partnership with the city, what's the deal with insurance? I'm assuming that liability is pretty significant on this kind of facility. Who's taking care of that?
We would take care of the insurance.
Okay.
Yep, that's in our budget.
Mike?
That currently families can rent out that structure up there in the summer, so that would go away.
Right, the revenue of that would go to the nonprofit. We would, so they could rent it out, but it would, the revenue would.
Okay.
Like a question.
Greg?
That building up there is actually historical. Is that anything, I mean, I like what you're doing, put windows on it, closing it in, but is that something you're never gonna take away or
If anything, we would add to it,
directly to it?
directly to it, yeah. So we had,
See, that's
drawings.
something we should talk about maybe because of the historic value of that to Plymouth.
Yep,
You know, and I think I talked with somebody about it, you know, even if you have to put the building over, if you add a building there,
yeah,
put it beyond that point is what I'm saying.
okay,
And that's something I think we should talk about more.
yeah.
That building should be an historical situation for Plymouth,
Yeah.
especially up there.
Okay. Yep, that's good feedback.
Question two.
David?
As far as the operational equipment that you mentioned here, that is snowmaking equipment, is that grooming equipment, is there other things involved in that?
Yeah, so it'd be the grooming equipment, snowmaking, and then we would have to run new water lines, we have to run all new electrical, we have to, and then install all new pumps.
So my question is regarding to the noise that we down here. When would you anticipate running the snowmaking equipment, for example?
So,
I mean, is that gonna be an overnight thing?
it could be, yes.
I mean, because carrying a lawnmower while you're trying to sleep at night could be a little bit noisy to the residents, I would think, right? So,
That's what it
is
used
that
to
gonna be
be
an
though.
issue?
It used to be all night long.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my only concern is that if the equipment, even at a lawnmower, I mean, if you're trying to sleep in the middle of the night or sitting at home watching TV for that matter, and you got a lawnmower going outside, and it's tough enough in the summer when that happens at all hours of the day. Is there anything that you can do about trying to make that noise impact less severe for the residents in the area?
So here are the statistics on the snowmaker on the bottom right. So this is at 10 meters away from that snowmaker at the front of it. So you're getting the full brunt of the noise of that snowmaker. it's 71 decibels at 10 meters. At 50 meters, it's only 54 decibels, so half the noise of a gas powered alarm.
Thank you.
Yep,
And is the snowmaker like towards the top of the hill, or is it movable?
it's movable. So our original plan was to have 5 snowmakers, and 2 of them would be permanent. And we've gone away from that plan to reduce our capital investment. So it'll be 3 snowmakers on movable carts. And then what we'll do is we'll run fire hoses basically to our water supplies and then run them to the makers so that we can, you know, move stuff around and be a little bit more nimble.
Are you just gonna focus on the run itself? Putting snow in that area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Based on expenses and things
Yeah.
like that, we would want to target on the runs. We may, you know, make a huge pile and then move it with the groomer, but yeah, that would be the runs would be our major focus.
Pete has his hand
Pete, I'm sorry.
I'll ask a question. You mentioned a couple times, you know, with engineering and design and things like that, you talked about the lighting. When the plan commission takes a look at like parking lots and industrial settings, you know, you're dealing with 2 different zones, and even though it's a similar use, the use is being increased. So when it comes to lighting, are you intending on having like a photometric study done so we can gauge the impact on the neighboring properties?
We were gonna have Jared Krusbeck, KW Electric, work on with J.E. Arthur on this engineering drawing to add to it. So I don't believe we had a study for the lighting in our plans.
It just because once it's up, you know, you're kind of at the point of no return. And I didn't know if that was a consideration. And I'm not sure how it's generated, but we oftentimes see that with plan submittals, that they do an engineering calculation as to how the light carries out, where its intensities are, things like that.
Okay.
Maybe just a consideration.
Yep. Yeah, okay. Good feedback.
Joe, you mentioned eventually a skating rink. Are you talking about kind of the plastic lined rink?
Yeah.
I think that would be something that'd be a great addition for Plymouth. So we don't have to rely just on the mill pond and the iffy conditions there.
Yeah. So our plan for the skating rink is an actual synthetic ice. So it would look like a hockey rink, but what you have is a new material that you can skate on. There's a lot of places down south, this is what they're putting in their parks. And so you would be able to skate all year long. And it's got a 15-year life, and then you flip it over and you have another 15 years on this synthetic ice. So you skate on it with regular skates, it's just like skating on ice.
Wow,
Yeah,
amazing.
it's pretty cool.
John?
You know, I can really appreciate the vision you have for that nut hill place and what could happen there. But I commend you for going up against Mother Nature because, you know, things have been pretty inconsistent as far as our recent winters
Yes.
down in this area.
Yeah.
And I don't think the future looks not much better as far as what could happen. And you made the comment that you may reduce, as far as your capital expenditures, some of the snow machines. If we do have the kind of winters, like for example, this one that we just got done with, aren't you gonna need more machines to produce the snow to keep it up to snuff?
It's a good question. I think that the hill's small enough where I think three snowmakers will probably do the job for the number of days that Mother Nature is giving us to make snow. If it was larger, yeah, but I think that if we needed a lot more snowmakers. The snowmakers, okay, they're not astronomically expensive. They're probably about 50 grand a piece, okay? So we're talking dollars, but we're not talking massive, massive dollars. So if we got into a situation where we had funds in the nonprofit, it's an option to go get additional snowmakers. One of the stats that we looked at based on the past winter that we had is we wanted to look at other hills and see how many days they were open. Because we had, before Christmas, people were making snow and then we had rain. So a lot of hills shut down during that rain because they wanted to preserve the snow that they had. Heigler Hill, which is a hill in Hubertus, was open 69 days this year. Our financial models are based on a 60-day and a 90-day season. So then when we looked at Sunburst was open 75 days this year. So, it seems like a really bad winter, but because they're able to make snow, people can enjoy winter activities. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. We haven't had the winters so that Nut Hill can stay open or even open. We haven't had the ability to skate at the Mill Pond. And I think the community of Plymouth needs winter recreation in it. I mean, we all grew up in, I shouldn't presume, but most of us grew up in Wisconsin. And part of the reason we like living in Wisconsin is winter sports. From a mental health perspective, from a healthy lifestyle perspective, from getting out in the community and things like that. So that's really why this group got together, is like, Mother Nature is not giving us what we can use for the ski hill. If we as a community want the ski hill in our backyard and for our residents to use, we have to use it.
Go ahead.
Last slide, I won't go through the appendix, you guys all have it, but if you've got questions on it, you're more than welcome to talk about it. So next steps for us, and if you see that we're missing something, let us know, but for us, it's really about, finalizing the engineering drawings with J.E. Arthur. We'll put together renderings, J.E. Arthur will put together, what's it called, Tim, a packet of, I forgot the name of it.
Sorry, the engineering drawings
All
are,
the engineering drawings, a site plan,
Perfect.
all the things
Sorry.
that are needed for that, so my apologies there.
Nope.
I don't deal with engineering. We'll continue our capital campaign. Based on recommendations, we'd like to, at some point, present to the Parks Committee, and then ultimately start to draft a lease with the city, and then present to the Planning Commission, seek approval from the Common Council for yes or no vote, and then place orders, start hill preparation, and begin the installation of the infrastructure. And then looking from opening perspective with 2025-26 winter.
Thank you very much, Joe. I think you've made substantial additions to the plan and worked around a lot of the concerns that were brought up at previous meetings, and certainly working the numbers to fit the design and everything, I think is a very worthwhile attempt to bring your goal into focus, and it is extremely important that we do have some winter activity, and I commend you on trying to come up with a workable design to make Plymouth more of a year-round attraction in many ways. So it certainly has opportunity here. Tim, I think if people have comments, they can certainly send them to you at City Hall, and then you can be the focal point for residents.
correct,
And then
yep.
you can work with the group on any next step situations as they continue to bring it forward. And certainly capital campaign will be a public event and so on. The lease, John, you asked a question about insurance. We always have an indemnity clause with any organization, so I don't see a problem with that being part of the process. And it takes a little bit of time to, as you found out, to put a lot together. It's very involved, sometimes more than what you started out to be. But I think you've used the available space wisely and created a opportunity. So personally, I think it's a very good presentation, and I certainly wish you success in moving it forward.
I appreciate that.
So-
Appreciate your time.
We'll go from there. We welcome comments to the proposed project, and we look forward to your next meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
you.
Thank you.
We have a few minutes left. Anybody want to make any comment about what we just heard before we call for an adjournment? Whether it's council members or the public, we certainly should pass those comments on to Tim at City Hall through the clerk's office. And if questions come up, we'll try to get answers for them. But it's important that we go through Tim, so we centralize that.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that Tim works with that building because of the historic value of it. And ask more about the trees and what's gonna happen with that. And if we can include our arborist in with that decisions with the trees.
That's all part of the process.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying that out.
Yeah, okay. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second motion?
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it.